to rub it in, Doug. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, February 11th, 2026 Select Board meeting. We are being recorded. If you would please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry. Okay, just making sure everybody's awake. We will start with the recognition of retiring police lieutenant Tom Hennessy. Chief is here. Would you like to start? Would you mind?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. I just want to recognize Lieutenant Tom Hennessy, who just retired last week after almost 30 years of service with the town. Now, if you know anything about Tom is he's one of the pride of Swampscott. He grew up in Swampscott. He lives, breathes, eats everything Swampscott. I always say that Tom is the most intelligent person, was the most intelligent person in the police department, because he would always throw it in our face that he went to Georgetown. So, but he didn't want any recognition. Just like Tom, our police union also tried to throw him a retirement celebration, and he did not want any part of it. So I'll just add that Tom has been a mainstay in our supervisory ranks for many years. He has been the MAD Officer of the Year for several years. He is the one who allowed us, and he wrote the grant for our municipal road safety. He has just been incredible, and most importantly, he has mentored our younger officers. And I know I wouldn't have been successful without Tom's help as well. So just like we all know Tom doesn't want any recognition. He's very thankful. He's very happy to be retired now, but I'm here to accept any award or any recognition for Tom.
Thank you, Chief. We do have a little citation that the Select Board has signed in recognition of his service to the town, and a small token of our appreciation. And, you know, as I always say, when you serve publicly, there's you give yourself to the town in such a way, but your family also gives themselves up so you can serve us, and so we appreciate him and his family for that service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to say anything about Lieutenant Hennessy?
I would. So I know Tom Hennessy from the neighborhood in which I live. His parents were my neighbors, and they were very active in Swampscott. His mother always reminded us that he's at Georgetown, graduated Georgetown. But with Tom is a very modest individual. He is a man of high regard. Like, he's a man of his word. He's a very honorable individual. And I can tell you, as a resident here, knowing when he was working, I just knew we were incredibly safe all the time. He was very dedicated. So I think, you know, he will be truly missed. He spent a lot of time, if he stopped by the farmer's market, he would talk to kids. He'd let kids come by the police station. He just got right on their level, and he's just a wonderful guy. And I wish him a lot of success. I wish his wife and his family a lot of success with his retirement, and I hope I see him working on details and things like that to say hi. So
we'll probably see him walking around town, I'm sure,
so.
on his walks for exercise.
He's a great guy. He comes from a great family. His father was the assistant harbor master, many years volunteering, never asking for anything. It was just a great family.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Okay, we will move on to another happy acknowledgement. We are appointing a new treasurer collector.
Yes, I'm happy to talk a little bit. We have Liam, who's joining us, I think, in the virtual world.
We see him there.
Yep, so Liam will be joining as the treasurer collector. We were lucky enough to meet him in the process of working to build out the finance team. The reviews that we've gotten from folks in Cary, North Carolina, which is where he is right now, have been absolutely glowing, and it's been a very similar career path, honestly, to Patrick's on the team down there, where he started following the completion of his MPA and has moved up through the ranks, and he's currently the budget director down there. He's relocating up here. We are really excited to have him joining us in a position that is incredibly important, certainly to the community, but very specifically to Patrick, so that we can take one more role off of his plate and focus him on the finance director efforts. And so we're really excited to have Liam. As I said, he's a graduate of Elon University and an MPA from UNC Chapel Hill. So really looking forward to having him join us.
Excellent. Should we put him on the spot and let him say something, or you think he's good?
I think he's probably ready to, if you'd like to, yeah. Can we unmute him for a second there?
He had a 3.9 out of 4. I'm sure he's got something to say.
I think you can, all right, there.
Can you all hear me?
We can.
You passed your first test, you unmuted yourself at the meeting, so that's a good sign.
Yes, I've used Teams before, so
Excellent.
it should be a good acknowledgement. No, thank you for that introduction. I think he hit all of the best parts, but I'm really excited to get up there and start doing good work for Swampscott. And in my experience in budget, as well as in the finance department in a couple different places, I've got a lot of good experience working with cash management, as well as working just in municipal finance. And I'm really excited to come up there, learn about Massachusetts, and be a part of the team.
Thank you, Liam. We're excited to have you. When did you start?
Is he waiting till the snow melts or something, or?
No, we're looking at March. We're finalizing the date, the first half of March, I believe.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome, Liam. Very
See you
good.
in March. Oh, and your cat.
Yeah.
It's coming
So
too.
you all will need to make a motion to,
Okay, so we need a motion to appoint our new treasurer collector, Liam Brayley.
Yeah.
Motion to appoint.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to the reading of the 2026 Black History Month proclamation. We have a special guest today to help us, if you wouldn't mind.
Do you have a microphone?
Bring a microphone to him. There you go. Thank you. Nick, appreciate that. And you can do it from there.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Ralph Betwitz. I'm a member of Shore Diversity, the diversity group here in Swampscott. And I want to thank the Select Board and the Town Administrator for this annual recognition of Black History Month. And this is the proclamation that's being presented. There's several whereases on it, and if anyone else wants to participate in reading this, just join me and we can pass it on. Black History Month. Whereas Black history is American history, February is Black History Month, a time to honor the history and achievements of Black Americans and to reflect on the centuries of struggle that have brought us to this historic moment to live up to the founding principles of our nation and the town of Swampscott, that all people are created equal with rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas this observance affords a special opportunity to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor Black citizens who have contributed to Swampscott's economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas the observance of Black History Month calls our town's attention to the continued need to expose and reduce racism, to develop and practice skills to become anti-racist, and to build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals. This year's celebration and recognition of Black History Month are especially significant as we reflect on the historic challenges facing our community and our nation at this time. And whereas we acknowledge that Black history is American history, stories and facts fully interwoven in the political, economic, cultural, scientific, and democratic fabric that makes our nation great. And whereas national policing strategies reminiscent of antebellum and the Jim Crow practices test constitutional safeguards, we are proud to celebrate community policing, including assembling the most diverse group of Swampscott police officers and firefighters in the history of our town. These efforts have helped to advance public trust and safety as we build a brighter, more inclusive future for our town, our community, and our nation. And whereas the town of Swampscott is proud to celebrate Black History Month and pledge our continued commitment to build a welcoming community, one that reflects the full talents and diversity of the American people, and that is committed to build a future that is inclusive and ready to confront persistent racial inequities and the systemic racism that continue to plague our community and nation. And whereas Swampscott unites, respects, embraces diversity, will hold a Black History Month celebration on Tuesday, February 24th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Swampscott High School to share important conversations about Swampscott's Black history and work to build a more inclusive community. Now, therefore, the town of Swampscott hereby establishes February 2026 as Black History Month in the town of Swampscott, Massachusetts, and encourages all faith-based and nonprofit organizations, residents, businesses, civic and public institutions to acknowledge, honor, value, and celebrate Black citizens, and celebrate our diverse heritage and culture, and continue our efforts to create a world that is more just, peaceful, and prosperous for all. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused to be affixed the great seal of the town of Swampscott, Massachusetts, this 11th day of February 2026, and it is signed by the Board of Select Board.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for the proclamation.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you, Ralph.
We have an additional proclamation this evening, and we have another special guest to read that proclamation. Ms. Zoll was a person that had reached out regarding some of the current events and offered to help make sure this proclamation came to fruition. So for that, I appreciate her time and energy. And she will be presenting the proclamation on the federal immigration enforcement, civil liberties, and the protection of human life.
Thank you so much. The proclamation on federal immigration enforcement, civil liberties, and the protection of human life. Whereas in January 2026, multiple incidents involving federal immigration enforcement resulted in the killing, detention, or harm of civilians in the United States, including the fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old U.S. citizen, by an agent of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and the fatal shooting of Alex Jeffrey Pretty, a 37-year-old U.S. citizen, by agents of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, CPB, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, during federal immigration enforcement operations. And whereas these incidents have occurred amid intensified federal immigration enforcement actions, including raids, detentions, and deportation operations carried out in civilian neighborhoods, workplaces, and public spaces, actions that have caused fear, disruption, and harm to immigrant communities as well as to U.S. citizens and have undermined a sense of safety in communities across the nation. And whereas the killing of civilians and the use of force, intimidation, or coercion in such settings have prompted widespread national outrage, public grief, and civic response, raising profound alarm about the erosion of public trust and the consequences of government actions that place lives at risk. And whereas such acts of violence and harm, whether directed at immigrants or U.S. citizens, are unacceptable and stand in direct contradiction to the fundamental American rights and values that form the foundation of our democracy, including the rights to life, liberty, due process, peaceful expression, and freedom from fear. And whereas the town of Swampscott reaffirms its commitment to being a community where every person is safe, treated with dignity, and protected under the law, and where policies and practices that endanger lives, divide families, or instill fear in our neighbors are incompatible with our shared civic values and responsibility to one another. Now, by the authority vested in the Swampscott Select Board, we do hereby condemn the loss of life, harm, and fear resulting from these actions, affirm our unwavering commitment to fundamental rights, accountability, and transparency, and declare that the safety, dignity, and humanity of all people are essential to the strength of our community and to the health of our democracy. In witness thereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused to be affixed the Great Seal of the town of Swampscott, Massachusetts, this 11th day of February 2026, and signed by all members of the Select Board. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
So, I know this month, Boston Mayor Wu and several greater Boston leaders, including those from Newton, Lynn, Somerville, Cambridge, and Chelsea, signed executive orders which banned immigration and customs enforcement from using city property, including city buildings, parks, and parking lots for enforcement operations. These actions aim to protect residents from what leaders call aggressive federal tactics. I think we should do the same in Swampscott.
Doug?
Well, I just first wanted to say thank you to Kiko for getting us going on this. I think that many of us feel hopeless in the face of what is happening, and I think this is a proclamation. One could say does nothing, but one could also say it is actually at least using our voices to express our dismay and anger and concern about what's happening to our fellow citizens and even non-citizens, people who live here. I just really want to appreciate you and the fact that you're taking some steps to do something and allowing us to take a step to do something. And I think if we all take these small steps together, which is happening across the country, especially our friends in Minnesota, standing up to what's happening, that the tide, I think, is turning. Unfortunately, extremely unfortunately for these two individuals and their families, way too much has been sacrificed. But if we all kind of band together, I think the tide is starting to turn, and we, of course, need to continue these actions. So thank you very much.
So I just want to say thank you to Kiko also for reaching out, for drafting it, for helping us get the words out and really understand what to say. And to the other residents of Swampscott who have reached out, you're not the only one. So certainly I echo all of your thoughts. We exchanged a lot of emails about this, and it's a difficult time, it's a difficult issue, but I am not of the mindset that it's the time to stay quiet. Right? If ever there was a time to not be quiet, it's now. That's how I feel personally. And I would echo what David is asking for. And I mean, I think that we've certainly heard it from our residents. It's not something that's just, a personal feeling of anybody on this board. But I believe it's our obligation to actually speak out and do what's right at this time. So thank you.
So I have reached out to the town administrator about getting the request on the next agenda so that we can make a public stance on where the town of Swampscott will fit into, as other communities have stood up and said, not in our backyard. So just want to make sure that we, check with all the correct avenues and get it done properly so that we are putting ourselves in the best position to enforce it should we have to. Also, we did invite the chief here, so if you could maybe reiterate, I know we had Captain Cable in a little while ago to talk about some of this stuff, but it unfortunately seemed a little different then than it maybe does now. So maybe if we could just reiterate for our community sort of what the current stance is on immigration.
Absolutely. Thank you. We do not enforce immigration enforcement. In fact, I believe Captain Cable had touched on it, but we strictly adhere to the Lund versus Commonwealth decision back in 2017, where the Supreme Judicial Court stated that Massachusetts law enforcement officers cannot detain an individual past their state release time. That can be considered an unlawful arrest. Again, like Captain Cable said, we don't collect any immigration information. We do not assist with any immigration enforcement whatsoever. And I'll also add, personally, I've been involved with, I'm a national co-chairperson for the Law Enforcement Immigration Task Force. I've been with that consortium for over 9 years. And it truly is a consortium of police chiefs and sheriffs throughout the country who are advocating for sensible immigration reform. Additionally, I provided, in my role as the co-chairperson, I provided subject matter expert testimony in November of 2025 that was sent to Senator Padilla's office, and that was included in congressional testimony back in November 2025. So not only do we abide by the law, but we also have to be sensible in our humanity and morality in anything to do with the topic of immigration enforcement.
Thank you. Appreciate.
I have a question. Can you just reiterate what Captain Cable had brought up in the fall, like for residents? What do residents do if they feel that there's something going on in their neighborhood, or they feel they have any fear whatsoever? Can you just reiterate what was said in the past?
Certainly. Thank you for that. We are advising anybody, our community, to contact the police department if there's ever any question whatsoever in anyone's mind whether there is law enforcement activity. I can tell you we've never had any notification by ICE or DHS, but we can at least confirm, we can respond, we will record on our body cameras any interactions or suspicious activity that the public has any questions about whatsoever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think in a time of a lot of fear and unknowing, any steps that the public has available to them to mitigate that is really important. So if at all you fear what is happening in your neighborhoods, please reach out and just hope and pray that we keep our community members safe. So.
If I might add one more thing, the Massachusetts Chiefs of Police Association, which represents all police chiefs throughout the Commonwealth, are compiling national best standards in dealing with this. That is in accordance also with our laws in Massachusetts. That is forthcoming. That is a big topic right now. I will be providing a summation to our legislators on March 4th in Essex County. Since I have a lot of experience with this in Arizona, where we had Senate Bill 1070, the most egregious immigration enforcement activity that's ever happened in the United States.
Well, maybe after that we can have another update and find out if there's anything else we can be doing in a time of, like I said, time of hopelessness. It's nice to be reminded of people who are helping and feel hopeful that if you feel helpless, that somebody can help. So
I do want to say too, just a thanks to the chief, we're incredibly lucky to have someone that has dealt with this type of immigration issues from a different part of the country here in Swampscott, and it makes me feel incredibly safe to know that you're heading up our police force.
I think that's why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely, and you've got
Thank
a
you.
wealth of experience, and we're really lucky to have you in this role, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move on to the TA report.
Thank you. To the points that were just being made, I have had conversations with KP Law on the work they're doing with other communities to figure out, David, to your point, what cities and towns, what difference there may be, and also making sure that we're doing things that can be impactful and appropriate. On a regular basis as well, the Attorney General's office does, I believe it's like twice a month webinar or once a month webinar for communities to have a better understanding of exactly where they are in supporting the state's response to enforcement. And as you know, we have a very active Attorney General in many respects in the interactions with the federal government. So it's, again, another resource that's made available to many communities. And I'll be working with Janelle and the chief to have something to come back with you on the 25th. But in addition to that, as you just suggested, it's probably something that once a month, maybe depending on things like the testimony to the legislators, we can make sure that the chief is here and available as well to answer any questions or to give an update on things that he's heard or participated in, if that works for you all.
Yep.
Yes,
Great.
thank you.
So getting to the rest of the TA report, the first update is on the HR side for me, and obviously we had Liam join us tonight, which we're very excited about. In addition, we have a new assistant town accountant who's starting next week. Her name is Kylie Gates. She's currently CPA, a graduate of Salem State, and, again, was just a great candidate when she got in front of Patrick and myself and Marianne and others, so we're very excited to have her. And then you may notice down in the first row, we have our new executive assistant for you all and myself, Shannon O'Leary. Today is her first day. She's joining us from Danvers. We're very excited. I know she's probably a little overwhelmed today, but Diane has been fantastic about trying to not only shepherd her around the building, but get her comfortable with all the different things that we'll be doing to support you all and myself. So there's that. A general update, as everyone's aware, it's on the agenda later tonight. The Hawthorne reuse RFPs came in, or the responses came in, and we also had an opportunity to put together a 5-person evaluator committee that had sent along some information to you all for you to make a decision on tonight. We'll get into that a little later. The budget we'll also talk a little bit about later tonight. The idea with tonight's update there is about process and about some of the drivers that are, outside of our direct control in Town Hall, so that we can all understand where we see some pressures going forward and as we try to nail down those final costs. In addition to that, we've asked all the department heads as part of the process to work very hard on limiting their expenses for level service, but also even a modest reduction in expenses where possible. And as part of that process, we're also looking at service contracts, things from IT to legal to everything like the printers in the building. I just wanted to highlight that we're taking as broad a look as possible and ask, obviously, you all, but also anyone in the community, if there's any expertise that they'd like to share with us as we're moving through that process. It's obviously very welcome for us. I want to thank the community development team. I know Marzi's here. Krista and Tim are not, but along with our consultant team and the DPW, they worked with BBH and others on the Pine Street project, which hit an important milestone last night at the closing of the ZBA hearing. It's been a real collaborative process throughout where both sides have identified issues or concerns, and we've worked to find focused solutions that allow us to move forward with the ultimate goal of expanding affordable housing. And I really want to thank Marzi and Krista specifically, but the whole team worked quite a bit on that, so I wanted to recognize their efforts. Similarly, I want to make sure, because it's been a while since we've all been here, that we recognize the DPW at large. I think we've had 3 heavy-duty snow events and a number of sanding events since we were last here together. They've been doing a fantastic job, not only in the thick of each storm, working to clear the roads and clear routes to the schools, but also in the days subsequent to that, where they've worked to expand sidewalks and clear Humphrey and clear parking lots to better allow for circulation throughout the community. It's a significant effort, and it's something that takes days at a time, and so I want to make sure they're recognized They've been out last night and today doing that very thing, just on a little 4-inch storm, so hopefully they'll get a little bit of a rest, but I really want to recognize all of their effort. And last but not least, I talked about Shannon. I want to make sure we recognize Diane tonight. Diane's been with you all longer than I have with her, but it'd be remiss to not call out your service and thank you. I know you're not going far, going to the police and fire to support the chiefs, one of whom's with you this evening, exactly. But personally, I really want to thank you for making my life as easy as possible over the last few months, even though I might not have done the same for you. It's really been a pleasure to work with you, and it was very, very helpful with me starting to have someone that was so knowledgeable and open about supporting me. So I wanted to thank you, and I know the board likely shares that as well. So not likely, they do share that. I shouldn't have put that qualifier in there.
Thank you, Diane.
Yes, I would just like to say personally, Diane, thank you very much for answering all the questions, never saying no, always saying, I'll find out if you didn't know. You were always a fixture whenever I popped in to see Nick or Gino, and always happy to take up any work, and just appreciate the work that you took on after when you were supporting Gino, you took on a more expanded role. So appreciate that, you did that with professionalism and without skipping a beat. So thank you very much.
And that's the end of my report.
Any
Happy to answer
questions for
questions.
Nick?
I do have one question, but we're going to be talking about the budget process later on, but at one point, I do want to start talking about a couple of, how are we going to talk about the capital plan, but I'll save that for when we're talking about the budget.
Okay.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
The one thing, could I just add one thing before your question that I forgot? On the HR and hiring side, we also made 2 conditional offers to police officers. I think we've already heard back on one. We anticipate hearing back on the other, both positive, which will leave us with 1 vacancy.
Okay.
That's I'm sure one of the follow-ups, this means we're going to start a new sort of cohort of applicants, because that was distilled from the 25 or 30 that they had down to 9, I think, that did oral board, and 3 that I met with, and 2 that we made conditional offers to.
So if they accept conditional offers, and then what do they have to do, pass?
The next step is psychological and health, and then
Okay,
from there
so-
we get them scheduled for the academy.
And what academy, what month would they be?
We're thinking mostly, the academies are running every month now, so probably June or July. As soon as we can, as soon as we can get them tested for the psychological, medical, sometimes that takes 2 to 3 weeks. And then what we do is there has to be a PT test prior to the entrance to the academy, and also all the paperwork that we have is sent to the MPTC to enroll. So there's a couple weeks time delay. So, like I said, probably June or July.
Have they taken a PT test here yet?
No, we thanks to the
eliminated that?
union, we just nixed that to make the process faster. So we, sorry if I didn't hear, we did offer the 2 conditionals
Yeah,
this week.
that was-
So we're well on our way.
So there'll be 1 vacancy, right?
Correct.
As of right now. So
Correct.
And part of the delay, obviously, just to highlight, because we talked about this with one of the candidates, is the training centers are regionally dispersed. So if Linfield or Randolph or Northern Essex are not in the rotation for 3 months, then we would wait to get one that is regionally, geographically easy enough to get to. I'm sorry, David, I know you had a question. I totally forgot to.
No, all good, all good. No, that's great news about the police hiring, so, well done. Pine Street, so the hearing closed, so next steps, can you kind of just sketch that out the next few weeks? And does that mean that B'nai B'rith is going to be in line for the
So
funding rounds?
Marzi can jump in, but where I believe we are is there's a 20-day appeal period that's open. At the conclusion of that, if there's not an appeal, then the decision is accepted, and they would then be with, I believe, in the timeline to to make the funding round that they were hoping to be in all along.
Their proposal is to submit an application to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities at the March 19 deadline. And at the same time, we will, as you know, we receive funding for the relocation of the culvert. So we will begin the process to seek an engineering firm to be able to design the culvert and to start the project. Our funding is a 2-year funding. We have actually reached out to the department to seek additional funds to address some of the water line issues within the project. And that's something that's being reviewed, and we are hopeful to do this simultaneously. And if not, we'll seek additional grant funding to do that work probably by the end of this year, if not early next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At some point, can we get like a long-term ETA, because we need to start actively putting together a plan on how to really focus on getting any veteran who would qualify to really do an in-depth push to be able to get Swampscott residents into that lottery?
Yeah, so that as part of the process, because they will be receiving state funding, they do have to have a fair marketing plan for the project, and that will really outline all the steps that individuals need to take. And they will do a marketing plan. They're required to advertise in local newspapers and to do additional outreach. But we will definitely work with them to make sure that we bring the information to you. We'll work with our senior center, and then obviously with our veteran agents as well, that they're aware of what the process should be and how does one submit an application to go through the lottery process.
We should also work back from that timeline to understand the steps that we need to do to ensure that our veterans relocation project is,
Right.
properly timed out in that timeline, making sure that we have enough time to renovate, accommodate, move, so that they're not displaced.
And I did remember after our December town meeting that we took a vote here sometime in the fall saying that we were going to establish a certain specific account for the funds that came from B'nai B'rith to go into a specific account. And we were supposed to actually do something at a town meeting to solidify that. So we should look back on that vote.
And add
On
that
the
to
May
the,
town
and look
meeting.
forward to what we need
And
to
look
do.
forward to
Yeah,
the May town
yeah.
meeting.
Right, sure.
Okay. All right. That's that. Okay, we will now entertain public comments. So public comment, we will have any comment on items on the agenda that do not have a public hearing. If you have comment on a public hearing item, then that will take place during the hearing. But any other public comment on non-agenda or agenda items, we're open to that commentary now.
Limited to 3.
Oh, 3 minutes. Thank you, Nick. Please, Brian.
For the record, my name is Brian Watson. I know the Select Board tonight and in the present generally is focused on a possible lease of the Hawthorne Building and exploring the possibility of acquiring some portion of the church parking lot. So I know those two tasks are receiving the board's attention at the present. For future consideration, I want to briefly refer to the letter that I wrote to the Select Board a couple of weeks ago. You may or may not yet have had a chance to read it, and that's okay, because it aims to convey some thoughts and observations that might be useful to you when you start to consider larger development plans for the site. Diane tonight brought the copies with the 4 site maps at the back. The email copy didn't have those. The letter is pretty self-explanatory. It's meant to be both complimentary and complementary, in both senses of the word, to the work of the Hawthorne Committee. But it's also supplemental in that it offers some cautions regarding our work. The main one is that certain areas of the discussion of possible plans, especially around the topics of building heights, building uses, building square footages, and parking quantities, could use further exploration and further discussion when you get to it. With a large committee of 12 people, some of whom were very invested in one plan or another. It was not always possible for certain subjects to be fully and adequately explored. When the Select Board begins to evaluate possible site redevelopment plans, whether with or without additional land, fuller discussion could occur on some of those topics. At some point in the future, if the Select Board is interested, I'd be happy to participate in those discussions, and I'd be happy to draw various additional site plans as needed to study various alternatives, especially if more land is added to the original site. It might also be useful and valuable to the board to explore various plan concepts on paper in live time in working sessions. When the time is appropriate, I hope you'll take a look at the thoughts in my letter and the attached diagrams and the approaches they illustrate. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comments? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to new and old business. We have a public hearing on the decision and possible vote to consider the approval of application for multiple amendments of existing Section 15 off-premises wine and malt beverage license to an off-premises all alcohol license for 44 Atlantic Inc., doing business as Richdale Swampscott, located at 444 Humphrey Street, Swampscott, 01907, including a change of manager, officer, and director and shareholders.
So we did that last part already, right?
We did the shareholders part. Yep, I believe we
The
only.
manager, officers, all that stuff.
We did that.
right?
I believe we did all except the change of
Correct.
license, correct.
So, Madam Chair, is there anything new?
I do have, thank you, David, I do have one opposition that came in that I will read into record. So this is from George Allen, Sarah Spedden, and Gregory Allen of 27 Bayview Avenue, and says to the Swampscott Select Board, we oppose the application by 444 Atlantic Inc. for the amendment of the existing Section 15 off-premises wine and malt beverage license to an all-alcohol license at 44 Humphrey Street, Richdale. We are an immediate abutter behind 44 Humphrey Street at 27 Bayview Avenue. While I realize the financial value of an expanded alcohol license and that such licenses generate substantial revenue for a small business such as this, the existing wine and beer license should be sufficient for this location. I do not oppose the existing license, but we have a new all-alcohol liquor store down the street at 646 Humphrey, across from Cindy's Pizza. There is no need for another all-alcohol off-premise license so close in a residential neighborhood. I encourage the Select Board to deny this application for an all-alcohol license. Thank you.
Hey, I just realized technicality, do we need to open?
We need to open the public meeting, so I need to read this again.
Well, we could.
Okay.
we could just-
So you're right, Doug, thank you for that. So I need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Diane,
But we never closed the public hearing
we
before.
did,
We're
We,
continuing.
we,
Continued.
we
we had
continued it.
continued it to a date certain, which
Which
was not
was-
a meeting.
which had
that we could
lapsed.
have. So we re-advertised this completely
Yep,
with
so this is a new-
with new notifications to neighbors
Notification.
and everything.
Yep.
To make sure that we had belt and suspenders and could do an actual vote on what remained. We did need to,
So
I think we
I
can
think
take
we
it that
could-
your
yes.
reading is now
Yes,
brought into
and
this.
so we have an email which we will put into record into the minutes from an abutter opposing the change in license. Any additional questions, comments by the board? I know it's been a couple of weeks since we've met on this, but
Are there any changes from the applicant? No changes. Okay.
oh,
There he
Chris,
is.
yep.
There he is.
Oh, we cannot hear you, Chris.
You're on mute, probably.
You're unmuted, but
Not muted, we couldn't hear him.
we just.
Can't hear me?
Oh, there
Now we
you are,
can.
yes.
There you are.
I'm sorry. I think the only issue was, as you said, the granting of the all alcohol like upgrade, if you will. All of the other proposed modifications were approved at the December meeting. Did you get all that?
We
Yep.
did, thank you. So I don't know how any of the other board members feel. I did a lot of thinking about this because, we had a robust conversation about whether or not it was in our right to deny the license, and I think Mr. Demento pointed out that of course it is, because it's coming before us as a question. And while I agree with his logic, I think for me, I looked towards sort of the facts that were available to us based on the case law for reasons for which we could deny the applicant. And I personally don't feel like any of those reasons exist here. I understand location and proximity to another license, but I feel like we're 3 square miles. We're not that big anyways. There's a great proximity to other licenses as well, and it doesn't make sense to me to hold a license when we have a business owner who wants to use it. So I think generally that's my 2 cents about it, but happy to entertain a motion or entertain other comments about it.
I'd be happy to move to approve the expansion of the license.
And I'll be happy to second it.
Okay, so
And I just want to acknowledge that, it's not, I think, good points have been raised here about it. It's not quite as much of a slam dunk as it was initially to me, but still on balance for some of the reasons Katie said, and more generally because I am very familiar with the way the store is operated. I am sure that the owners will take into consideration what this discussion has been about, and I would hope that the construction of the change in the layout will be done in a way to be very sensitive to the considerations and concerns that people have had. But, having said all that, I do think it's appropriate.
So we have a motion and a second on allowing for an amendment of the existing off-premises wine and malt beverage license to an all-alcohol license. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, so that passes.
I just want to be on record that my no is strictly because I feel that it does not benefit the community having another liquor store within a half a mile of each other. It has nothing to do with the people that own the market whatsoever. It's just, we are a very small community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you guys for returning so many times.
Thank you for listening, to us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you for your
I
patience.
know that my client will do their best to make you proud.
Thank you. That we know for certain. Most of us frequent that location and we know you will. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will now entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the topic.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you guys very much. And we now will move to a additional public hearing, a discussion and possible vote to consider the approval of an alteration of premise under the current wine and malt license filed by 128 Humphrey Street Food Service doing business as Pomona, located at 128 Humphrey Street, Swampscott. So I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. Have a good night. Do we have?
Oscar Guerrero is actually the petitioner's online.
Okay. Okay, so Pomona has assumed the adjacent commercial space, which, if you're familiar, was once the hair salon, and expanded the restaurant to approximately 2,760 square feet. They're proposing a bar with 10 bar seats, 2 handicap accessible restrooms, and a new dining area with 10 tables, which will include 30 seats. So this would be a change in premise license from a malt wine and beverage license to a full liquor license, service, not for takeaway, and then an expansion of the licensed area from the current licensed area to a full the adjoining area also. We're just, yes,
This is only alteration of premises, not a change in the in the type of liquor license.
oh, the letter,
They already have a full liquor license.
they have a full liquor license, you're saying?
No, they only have a beer and wine or a,
Wine and malt, that's
wine
it,
malt,
right?
yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
You're not asking for anything else, are they?
Well, the letter,
It's just-
Marcy, okay, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just reading the vote, so that's how I was going by.
Okay,
but-
so the letter in the packet does say that they're seeking approval for a change of premises and expansion to a licensed area. But at the top, it says, upgrade from beer and wine to all alcohol. Is that not the case?
That was not, so Oscar is on. Can we
Okay,
just,
let's unmute
Yeah.
Oscar.
to clarify, because that was not the case. He raised his hand, if we can.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Members of the Select Board. So that is correct. We're only seeking to consider the approval of the alteration of premises under the wine and malt beverage license.
Okay, so you'll stay just wine and malt beverage, just in a larger area, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, very good. Any additional comments, Mr. Guerrero?
Yes, so we have integrated to the former, as you explained earlier, to the salon space into the restaurant. And we have completed the installation of a service bar. And this will serve as the improvement to guest circulation and service flow. And we just wanted to mention that for the impact of the community, if there's any concerns. So the proposed change will not result in increased noise. And we are not seeking to extend our operating hours or increase any late night activities. So this will definitely not disrupt the surrounding properties or neighborhood. The only intention for this is to enhance the guest experience and improve internal operations and create a better balance throughout the restaurant, and obviously to benefit the town of Swampscott.
Thank you.
Oscar, when are you looking at having this completed and open?
We are in the final stages of the completion, hopefully by next week.
Whoa. Great.
Any additional questions? And I assume, because right now there's not really a bar per se in the current space, so the construction of the new bar, all your bartenders will be tip certified and go through all that protocol that the ABCC requires, so.
Yes, so we are in compliance with all the requirements for, as far as local state regulations and tip certification. We haven't had any, we haven't defaulted at all, and we do provide extensive training to all of our bartenders, and servers serving alcohol. So just to clarify, we are in full compliance with all that.
Very good.
So what is the motion then?
Is the motion,
Do you want to make the motion, Marion?
I'm not sure, is
not
it,
sure, so the,
why I'm asking.
Yeah, just to approve the alteration of premises
under the,
under the current wine and malt beverages license. Basically just expanding the space.
So, do we have to have a motion to expand the space and a motion to expand the liquor license for a larger space? Do we have to be,
So this is just you're voting on the alteration of
Alteration
premises,
of
meaning that by your vote, you are allowing liquor service to go into the adjacent space.
I think it's the same thing we did for
G?
G, because when they expanded, it's
Little g.
considered an amendment to their current liquor license as an alteration of premises.
Okay.
So
Want
that's,
to grab that one?
that's
You
the
can have
motion.
All right, I move to approve the alteration of premises for Pomona under the current wine and malt beverages license.
Second.
All, any discussion, everybody? Let's go. Okay, all,
No,
in
I wish them luck.
great. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
Can't wait to go check out the new Pomona.
See you next week, Oscar.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
as well. And now we have, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the topic.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. All right, next is an update and discussion on the fiscal 2027 town budget process.
Could you put that slide back up now? Sorry about that.
Just one page. Oh, that's-
Yeah. It's,
For now.
This is not the budget. This is to make sure that so when we came before you in the fall, we had the projections which were rolling forward a small increase on expense and salaries. We have gone through sort of the exercise to work with each department head on what level service looks like, which was the direction I got from you all in December, but also what a modest reduction. We were asking for 5% where possible. You know, obviously, we're not able to cut we were not asking to cut 5% from salary at this point. It was just a question of looking at expense and seeing where we might have some more fat to trim and opportunities to move forward with some savings. So that's sort of where we were. I just wanted to highlight tonight, and this is a question that I think you were starting to get to. We've submitted the SIP to the Capital Improvement Committee, who voted to move it forward to the Finance Committee. There were two outstanding items on there that we're trying to dial in price. It is a force main study to begin the process of understanding what needs there may be other than the air release valves, which are actually part of the capital plan. And then in addition to that, for next year is the vacuum truck that DPW and Water and Sewer has been talking about for a little bit. It's not necessary for this year. We want to make sure that we get a real price and that we're able to plan for it going forward if we decide to make that investment next year. Do you want to ask questions about capital before I get into?
A couple of the questions I had on capital after looking at the list and listening to a couple of the meetings. There were some items on there, like a $100,000 vehicle. There's the vehicle items that were on there I was questioning because I really like to get a better understanding why we need to spend $100,000 for a vehicle that just one person's going to be driving around. Whereas, can we scale back and get an electric vehicle that's really a little bit more suited for one individual? And just where are some other opportunities we have in capital? Because, you know, I constantly look, I mean, for me, the major driver for capital, especially in the future, is the middle school. Mm-hmm. And making sure that we clear as much possible, and I'd like to see us go as lean as possible on that capital plan so that the funding, and I was talking to Katie about this, our majority of our funding is going towards our infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And when I say infrastructure, I mean our buildings and our water and our sewer lines. So, and getting away from things that, if we can get away from, I'm sure that some of these larger vehicles are nice to drive around in, but, you know, I also think we're 3 square miles, and it's not like we have to go that far.
Mario, can you specify what specifically you're referencing?
I'd have to get the copy.
Vehicles?
I don't have the copy of the capital thing. I'll get that to you next week, or Nick can send that out to all of us, the breakdown.
So
Just looking for a discussion on it.
Yeah, so I had shared it with the liaison. I'm happy to share it with the entire group when we first transmitted it to the Capital Improvement Committee, because she's the liaison. I think, if I can hazard a guess, the one vehicle that's 90,000-ish, I believe, is an electric vehicle for the chief to replace an older vehicle that is also, it's a question that we asked, to be completely frank, both Patrick and I, about the need for something of that size, you know, is hybrid versus electric, and it actually is used as part of the emergency management response to move equipment that we have within town as described to us. I am happy to get more information and share it with the full group.
Yep.
But it was one that stood out to us, just to say, you know, let's talk through how we got this vehicle and why you want electric. And, you know, that's sort of, we did ask some critical questions of it, and happy to ask more and get more context for the full board.
Is the 90,000 just the vehicle, or is it also like I know, at least we've had this conversation with police cruisers before, it's the purchase of the cruiser, and then on top of that, it's the technology in the cruiser?
It is both
Okay,
in this
so
case.
it covers all.
There's certainly opportunities when you talk about fire specifically to see if there's funds and a need and a desire to have advanced life support and other things there. They can, I know in other communities, that's something that is regularly added to, command vehicles, not because they're responding all the time, but because it is very useful to have. But I'm happy to, Patrick and I could sit down with the chief and just get more context as part of a future discussion, like you're saying, over the full plan. So if there's other items, I'll circulate it to everyone, what we shared with Danielle, obviously. If there's other items, if you want to let us know in advance by reaching out directly to me, we're happy to gather that to make a future discussion here as useful as possible, so that it's not you asking us questions that we have to go get more info from someone else.
And this particular vehicle, was this on the capital plan for a number of years? Question one, and question two is the vehicle that this is replacing, what's the age of that vehicle? But
I'm going to turn to Patrick, because off the top of my head, I cannot answer those fully.
okay.
Yes, so there's two vehicles in particular in the fire department that have been floating out there that are in need. And at least the deputy chief vehicle, which I believe is a 2006 Tahoe, that would be retired, and the chief's vehicle, as proposed, would be replaced, and then the current chief's vehicle would be cycled down to the deputy chief. So that's kind of the cadence, but there has been a need identified on the plan previously to replace these vehicles.
So this isn't just popping up out of nowhere?
No.
Got it.
What's the age of the current chief's vehicle? Do you know?
I believe that's a 2016 Ford Expedition, I think is what he shared with us, so that would be cycled down and used further.
Yeah, I just want to bring this up. I'd just like to see us having a little bit more in-depth conversations about it.
Sure.
Do we want to go through everything in this year? I was planning the operating budget with expenses and salary. Do you want to do both at the 25th? SIP and that, and kind of clear the deck of other items so we can focus on both? Does that work for the board?
I think it makes sense to have the whole picture.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think Mary Ellen's point overall is an important and a good one, right? I have to say that it feels sometimes that I know capital improvement is scrutinizing these things, but they're in somewhat of a bubble, right? I mean, you can look at a lot of things and think, oh, that makes sense, right? But, when in a larger context, not only larger capital context, but larger operating context, and with the middle school and our overall tax situation, what is the scrutiny level of just how needed is something right now? I think that's your broader point, right?
Yeah. That is my broader point.
Right.
Especially with, what it's looking like on the state level and on the federal level, and, what we're walking into. I'm just thinking of a 5-year, 6-year outlook on everything here.
And I think we do, I'll speak for myself. I think it's easy to fall into, oh, well, we typically spend $5, $6, $7 million, whatever it is, in the capital budget, and that's just our norm. And so if it fits into that, well, then it must be kind of okay, and we kind of go along. And then all of a sudden you realize, well, there's debt service on this, and that's actually impacting the budget, and all of those things. So I think we just maybe need to be a little bit more scrutinizing.
Sure. I will add, we had talked a little bit about when there are big chunks of debt coming off, when we talk about something like I think the point is well made, Mary Ellen, that we should be thinking about each year, and to Doug's point, 5 million, because it's always been 5 million, doesn't need to be how we're operating. But the big chunks that are necessary for a school, even with debt exclusion, are a little bit further down the road. It's not in the 5-year plan, it's a little bit beyond that. So I think we can be sure to have a sense of that on the debt schedule, of where we start to see larger opening and more opportunity, I guess. So we'll make sure that we have that for the next meeting as well, Patrick, just to discuss in a little more detail.
Patrick, in capital, what we used to have would be, for every request, would be a description, a detailed description, and we just pop into the file and look at the detailed description. Do you have that anymore, where each one is broken down to make it easier for you, so that we're not asking you the same questions over and over?
Yeah, so there's a shared drive that I have the committee, the capital improvement committee set up with that has all of these submissions we collect from department heads and all the schedules. Something that the FinCom asked for this year, which is, I think, the same thing you're asking for, is to include that information on a master schedule, so you don't have to go to multiple places to find it. So that's actually something that the capital improvement committee, specifically Ryan, is compiling, so that there's a little qualitative description of each project along with the schedule with the cost.
Right.
So I'm connecting with him this week so he can get that closed out and turned over to the finance committee. So that can be shared with you all as well, I imagine.
Great.
Okay.
I think we
So-
also, when we had the first financial summit, we talked about, when we talked about the middle school, we talked about sort of scoping out sort of a timeline of a big project versus little projects, and how, whether or not we were going to sort of work this piecemeal or like go forward and ask for, like windows, which we've heard about multiple town meetings in a row, which have never been done yet. And like going forward in that regard rather than a full middle school project. And I think there was an ask from Max and Jason to sort of give us, either like a pros and cons or like a timeline to figure out, like, we could still go forward with windows and get some funding, and then we would, within 5 years, still be able to do a big project or whatever the, sort of what the hit would be if we,
I think we decided to go ahead with the windows, didn't we?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that's what
Yeah.
everybody had said, but I
We're-
just
we're
wanted.
going
Is that
ahead.
in the current?
We're,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
The design.
we're finalizing the design.
Design.
Socotec just signed the contract. There was a lot of back and forth because
Right.
related to liability, not to get into too much detail. That design will be completed so that the plan is to have a hard number at town meeting
Okay, great,
to say we're appropriating it. The work won't be done this summer because of the lead time needed for windows.
for the windows.
So it's appropriated at town meeting this spring, work to be completed next summer.
Okay.
So summer of '27, not summer of '26, if that makes sense. And that was a question that was asked by the Capital Improvement Committee as well, like, why are we moving forward with this? If we're, in out years, I think they have a number of like 100 million just as a placeholder to say there's a big project, whether it's piecemeal, new, whatever. And Max's contention is we are at so far beyond useful life for the
Yes.
windows that it's
Yeah.
something that we need to move forward with
Tabled it.
to
for the past
maintain
6
a
years.
learning environment that makes sense. And so that's why we're continuing with the design now with the hope that we have the hard number for this spring.
But then we've also, there have also been requests for the entire, to enter the MSBA program
Statement of interest.
as well. So do we have an update as to that, where that stands? What the timing is there? Has there been a final determination that's been made?
I believe the superintendent would
Yes.
like to come before you all at the end of this month or next month to have that discussion.
Yeah. So he reached out to me to ask if he could grab some time for us to have that conversation, so it's imminent.
And that had been happening in conjunction with us saying, like, where could it possibly fit? Knowing that it's going to be a debt exclusion regardless, but still, like, you don't want that type of debt exclusion on top of what's already being carried. So when do big things like the high school really start falling off? And that's sort of
Right.
part of the process and the information that we want to provide to Jason so that any discussion here is informed. And it's all the same questions you're asking is information that Jason's already looking for.
Excellent. Thank
Okay.
you.
So just to get to this slide, it's been a good discussion, but I wanted to highlight this stuff. Those drivers at the bottom are items that are significant, that we are estimating, and that we are, in some cases, uncertain of where we're going to land, in other cases, not. So I'm just going to run down them. Feel free to stop at any point for questions. GIC, looked at getting out, number one. The timing is it's 27 is when our contract is up. Going into July of 27 would be when we would be able to do that. We are,
Maybe Shannon can set us a reminder, because we are terrible about remembering the
Every time.
dates for the GIC.
so, and also there's been,
Habit of ours.
we can request once in our contract sort of a global level of information that would help if we had a consultant sit down with us and say, here are the options, whether it's trying to encourage people with some sort of buyout so that they go to a spouse or partners, and we not share the savings. We give them some of the savings. We keep the majority of it. They would work on something like that, but they also work with communities that are within GIC to see which plan might be most advantageous for the community itself. So that request is happening to get all of that information. 27 is when we would be able to get out. That being said, in the budget that we talked about in the fall, we were carrying, I believe, 14.5% increase. We went at the absolute top end of where they have ever been historically, so that we were not having a discussion now saying, well, I had it at 4 and I was hopeful, and it's actually much higher. Where we will start to get some certainty tomorrow, the board meets to talk about plan redesign. And then on the 26th, unfortunately, the day after our next meeting is when they vote on rates. I will just say, you know, I won't say I'm optimistic, but I'm not as pessimistic as I was in the fall. After having discussions with folks at the Mass Municipal Association conference and talking to other people that are involved in this process, I don't think that we'll be at that high end, but for the time being, we're going to keep it there and then understand that's something that can, if one of these other drivers comes higher than we anticipate, it will help us make up that difference or ultimately result in a savings in those estimates that we had in the fall. Collective bargaining, we're voting, or ratifying rather, the police contract this evening.
I have a question on the GIC.
Okay, yeah,
really
sir,
quick.
go ahead.
On the GIC, we were given estimates in February, March, but we didn't have final numbers until in May.
Right.
So how is that going to line up? Is that the same?
So the estimates that, like last year as an example, the estimates in December were, I think, between 9 and 12, and it ended up being like 12.9 or 13.
They came in higher
Right.
just as we were walking into.
That, well, no, that number was becoming apparent in March and February. The final dial-in will take longer, but we will have a very good idea of where the rates are and where we'll be after the vote. I would say early March to give us and them time to, you know, do some of the math around it.
Okay.
But they're voting on rates on February 26th. So yes, the final number comes later, but we will have a much better idea if it's single digits, which would be amazing. Then knowing that would be fantastic, as opposed to continuing to carry 14.5% and hoping that we come in under.
So with GIC, when Doug and I were working on this to get out of GIC, we were informed at the last minute that we had to give them a letter of intent to withdraw from GIC by December of 2 years ago. So, which means that we'd have to give them a letter by next December. But one thing that was really interesting is there were different opportunities available out there. And for example, Boston got out of GIC and went with Blue Cross Blue Shield in different packets. So I just want to make sure we start to get ourselves prepared in advance for.
That's what I heard you saying, we're
Yeah.
literally
Right.
requesting the information.
Yep.
And you referenced a potential consultant or something to help with this.
Yeah.
Is that a decision that you made and are progressing on, or do you need any
I've
vote
spoken-
or anything from us?
I've
or-
spoken to them last fall, right after I got here, because I
Yeah.
worked with them in Milton, and
Yeah.
then in the last 3 weeks, been reaching out again, because I want to get a sense of anticipated cost, because we would need to build it into any budget. So I don't have that yet. She wanted to talk a little bit about what the scope would look like for us, whether it's everything under the sun we want to look at, like we want to leave, we want to see about buying people out, or whatever the case is. But they have sort of a menu of things that they do for different communities, that will be the kickoff discussion in
Great.
sort of their pitch, where it's a free opportunity for us to learn. And then we'd have to figure out what the scope would be and look at actual contract language and all that. Okay? Great. So collective bargaining, we still have fire, we still have library, DPW, expires at the end of this fiscal year, and came in today to begin that reopening, ground rules in a few weeks. So short way of saying, there's a number of pieces that are still at play. We'll continue to have salary reserves, but also, you know, we would love to be moving towards settling these as well. And as I mentioned, I thought you were trying to stop me from saying this, we'll be ratifying the police contract, so that gives us some certainty over the next 3 years of what to anticipate there. But again, it's an open piece, and where that lands and where the contracts may land between now and the end of the year have the ability to influence how close we get to using any particular number in excess levy or not. So I wanted to highlight that. Waste disposal. to be completely frank, when I saw Marblehead, I was super concerned as opposed to just being very concerned. In talking a little bit more, number one, what we're doing, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee has in their possession right now, or the working group, a draft RFP that I'm asking them to make sure that they add, I think, Doug, you talked a little bit about services that don't only be dollar driven. Let's ask for the services we may want, and then we can make the decision on what we want to pay for. They're making sure we included that, and they're also tearing it apart to make sure we're not missing anything. So we meet again tomorrow on that. It's also with KP to look at the contract that's within the RFP, just to make sure it's good for forum, and anticipating there'll be a couple changes. But we want to get that out as soon as possible. I think when we think about things that are positive for us in this case, we already have the barrels. Everyone's going automated. Everyone that's gotten back to Gino and I. So we would still be at some point, there would be a capital expense for the recycling, the barrel of whatever size we end up going with. However, we're partway there because the money has been spent over time on the barrels that already exist, and everyone can use even that 35-gallon up to something much larger. It's sort of an arm that meets the size of the tote, so that it can be two different sizes for recycling versus trash. That's one benefit. Also, I am thankful I was not a part of the discussions when we went to a barrel of that size, because it is small, but it also limits our tonnage. And so looking at other communities that might either have no barrel right now, or they get one that's larger, that was a difficult process that the community has already gone through that could ultimately benefit us in this process, because our total tonnage will be lower, meaning the tipping, comparatively speaking, would be less than someone that had 5,000 tons a year instead of 3,300, which is roughly where we are.
I'm not sure if I completely follow, because if the arms can adjust to the smaller trash or the recycling, the big recycling ones, why is there a big capital expenditure?
Because we don't have
any standard recycling barrels right now.
It's a free-for-all.
Okay.
So instead of.
We need that barrel.
It's about standardizing it, so.
But if people already have one that's a big.
I cannot possibly answer this,
Okay.
honestly. I know where you're going, and I'd love to have the answer for you, but I don't.
Okay.
The idea would be that, similar to trash, it would be a standard barrel. Everyone has it. The truck is dialed in to be picking that up.
I got it.
And dumping it overhead.
Got it.
So that's waste disposal. We want to get that out as soon as possible, but there's some things that I think are at least generally positive. Property and liability insurance,
Can I, just
go
one
ahead, sorry.
additional question on waste. If everyone's going automated, what happens to blue bags, and what happens to overflow waste?
That is, the blue bags are part of the conversations we've had in anticipation of drafting this. One vendor said, well, they'll just need to get a second barrel. The second vendor said, put it on top, that it is standard practice for someone to just have to jump out if it drops off. But most of them, they're doing this hundreds of times a day. They are gentle enough picking it up that something can sit on top and be dropped in, as long as it's the right color and it doesn't have prohibited materials and that type of thing.
Great.
So it's part of the RFP to say that we would like that. And the one vendor who said they can't do it, we would push them in any negotiation to get them to be willing to do it.
Okay.
We don't think that the usage of that works in a way that it makes sense to, the answer being you need 2 barrels if you're getting 1 extra bag 10 times a year. It's like, it doesn't make sense logically. So that's something that we've highlighted in the RFP.
Yeah.
I'll stop just jumping ahead. Are there any other questions? No? Okay. Property and liability, I think originally we were at 5%. Is that right, Patrick?
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback we've gotten from our vendor is it's going to be closer to 9% as a conservative plan for. So, as with all of these, we're always willing to have conversations to make sure the coverage is appropriate, the vendors are right. But it's, again, one of these items that I wanted to highlight. Did someone have a question? Anyone?
Is that going out to bid? We went out to bid just recently.
Last year, right?
So we changed brokers, and the broker markets each of our policies, whether it's property coverage, various liability coverage, workers' comp, police and fire injury policies. they market those to carriers. So they're actually taking our risk profile, marketing that out to various carriers and coming back with the results from that. So that's the exercise they're doing right now. And we have a meeting with them on the 17th, I believe, to go over the results of that. So they gave us 9% as a preliminary estimate.
Did they say why? If we were planning on
That's what I'm
5,
gonna
or what
find
the
out.
variable is? What's
That's
driving
what
it?
they're gonna go over in our meeting. They have to talk to all the carriers first. So it's a little bit of a waiting game.
Great. Thinking of a question, or you're just being thoughtful?
Do you have a follow-up?
No,
Okay.
Looks like you might.
no, I'm just feeling sick.
Well, let's see what happens on the 17th.
You should ask
before
Patrick
we-
what it's like to listen to me all day talking about trash. If you're not feeling great. So Essex Tech admission lottery, this is another one to highlight. It is a Essex Tech district-wide problem for everyone that's not a city. Because of a lawsuit, the admission process has changed. It used to involve interviews and a lot of subjective decisions being made throughout the process. It is now a blind lottery, and they have reallocated the number of spots by community. The result of that is that, we had, I think, 30 total students, if I have my notes right, in there now. Our minimum target is 23 for next year. And I think we have 39 applicants as of today. There's a lot, it sounds somewhat frightening, and I've talked to other TAs, and this is something that I think at large will be addressed, not for this admission cycle, but there's going to be a lot of discussion going forward, because at the end of the day, it was sort of the cities limited their number of students, and Marblehead went up to 39, we're 23, and I think it's 5 for Nahant, so 28. And, it's a big jump. The one thing that, with it being a lottery and the sort of barrier to entry being much lower now, talking to Jason and Superintendent Linfield and other places, more people are applying than they did in the past, because now it's get an application and see what happens, as opposed to getting an application and go through a process that requires in-person interviews, recommendations, and all these other things. So in short, we don't know how it will sort of shake out in the end, but it's something that, to use my town, Linfield as an example, it's driving part of a deficit when they had what they thought was a balanced budget earlier this calendar year. So,
But correct me if I'm wrong, we only pay for who actually goes, correct?
Correct, it's an
Just the
assessment.
23, so we would obviously assume all 23 are going, right? And we would know that it can't ever be more than X, right?
no.
So isn't it a
The only,
savings?
hold on,
Yeah, thank you.
the can't be more than X would be 39. The minimum is 23 for our target.
Oh, that's the
So
minimum.
if another town exhausts all of their spots,
Mm-hmm.
and they have no more applicants, and then they go back through the list, and there's still 16 from Swampscott that are still interested in going,
Mm-hmm.
the best lottery number would be offered a spot. So if everyone was
Oh,
was
it's a
yes.
lottery
So
to-
so what does, so 23 for Swampscott really means nothing when it can be more than that?
It's the floor
It's the
for
floor,
how many
it's
they
the
would like
minimum.
to have from
Right.
Swampscott. That being said, with 39 applicants, if in reality there's only 7, they're not going to shake the
Right.
tree to get 16 more. But
Right.
if the demand exists, it's 23 is the floor. And then if they get through that and other communities are not hitting their number, then they would go back to people that are beyond the 23, number 24 through 39 in town would be offered a spot if they're interested in going still.
So to Mary Ellen's point, I think, why do we know this is a bad thing financially
Yeah.
at this point?
We don't.
We don't. I'm
Okay.
highlighting,
No, we
I'm
don't.
highlighting it could be.
That there's
All of the-
uncertainty in
okay.
it.
Basically, all of these are uncertainties that could take it
Well,
from.
they're all pretty much bad. We just don't know how bad.
We don't know how bad or if
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
And so, just as with GIC, the number could come in lower than we're carrying with this. It could be that, in reality, there were a lot of folks that were
Fair.
applying because it's easier this year, and at the
Yeah.
end of the day, they decided they wanted to stay here. That one of the pathways to innovation made more sense than going to
Right.
or Middleton every day, so it's, or Danvers, wherever they are. They're on the border somewhere,
Yeah.
but.
They are, Yeah, you're right, it is.
But just for clarity's sake, there's 30 Swampscott. There's 30
Currently
There's
enrolled.
30 currently in the 9th grade class. And
There's 30
No.
total.
Yeah,
total.
Yeah. I think last year was 15, and the other years are single digits.
that's about the average.
Don't we
Never
have
usually.
less kids wanting to go there than more? I thought that the number was getting,
Doesn't sound like it this year.
I mean, those are numbers that apply, right? That doesn't necessarily mean everyone that applies wants to even go, right?
It's similar to the, I mean, in some ways to the college process where there's a common
It
application.
used to be
and
very
people kind of
stringent,
fire it
difficult to get in.
Everywhere.
because it's easy. And even though they're not interested necessarily in going to all of those places, so it's, we're uncertain of how many of those 39 would go if they get offered.
20 bills across the board.
okay.
So, with that good
Alrighty.
news.
Is the second slide the good news?
No, no.
Oh,
no.
Well,
Where is
I do have a question though, as we're talking about the budget process, I think, so we're looking at, before we had, we would do our budgets 2% plus new growth, et cetera, and then that seemed to be a lot of pressure. And we have a 2.5% plus new growth. I mean, like, and then the third variable is, what are we doing as far as, what are our thoughts as far as the unused levy? I mean, how are we going to really frame up this conversation?
So if I could just, what I had asked in December was exactly that. And so I asked if you wanted to come in at level funding, which
Yeah.
would implicate less or none. And the answer seemed to be no, do the 2 and 2.5 plus 425.
Right.
And so that's what we've been building out, and it shows a deficit. And so trying to refine that deficit to as hard a number as we can is where we are. And I wanted to highlight these are we've done a lot of that with department heads. I'm sure, my preference would be to do it a little different than last year. So give me direction that we need to continue to make cuts. I'll sit down with folks and come back. We can iterate that way. But I think really as of right now, anything that we're coming to you at the end of the month with would use excess levy capacity. And from there, I'd be, more than happy to take feedback from you all for Patrick and I to go back and change that, but that was the direction that we had gotten back in December.
So just to remind everyone,
Sorry, I think in December, we had said basically if we went to level set funding, we would,
It's draconian cuts to
Yeah.
not implicate.
right, I mean, there would be full departments lost, I think. So, I think it's got to be somewhere probably in between what is level set and, I mean, obviously, we're looking now to say, let's get it to its barest bones under the 2.5 plus 425, and then when we can't cut any further without getting to bone, then we have the conversations about, do we keep cutting or do we look at how much levy?
right, when we start to look at how much levy, we really have to be really clear on how we're working down that number and how long we can sustain that. So just want all the information out there.
And I think part of this discussion tonight is to highlight that that work started prior to my being here. Like you all certainly went through that in past years. These are things that are outside of our ability to cut. These are things that, as a community, we've decided what we would like for waste disposal. As a community, we make decisions about how we want to pay employees for collective bargaining, and that's the priorities and the values of the community are what we're reflecting. I wanted to highlight things that are big expenses that we can put our finger on the scale in some spots, but they're largely outside of the realm of the type of thing you're talking about, where make sure we cut everything that we can to be as lean as possible on salary and expense,
Very good.
Other questions?
I do just want to note that the charter requires us to vote on pass the budget by the beginning of March, so I think we will be a couple days late because of the timing of these meetings.
Yep.
For us to pass?
For us to pass.
He has to propose
he's
it by
gonna-
March 1st, right?
which we will do. I do think that.
Do we have to
I
vote on
think-
it, though?
Well, I think we are supposed to.
Yeah.
But I think historically, it
Yeah.
has been presented in February. You have?
No,
I didn't hear you.
presented in February.
Right, and I certainly think that, as I've said several times, our goal going forward with a fully built finance staff and a full year under my belt, a full fiscal year that I'm here for the whole thing, all of this will happen earlier. We anticipate, we've already talked about coming in August with the first sort of iteration of what we can
Well, I
expect
was
at
going
a very high level,
to
sorry.
turn that lemon to lemonade, which is to say that that is probably the closest to the charter
Oh,
we've been
okay.
in recent history, is getting that through at that timeline, and that's even with the deficits y'all have faced with staffing, and so, while we're not quite up to snuff as the charter, we are getting better, and we will continue to do that. That's the commentary I was gonna make about that, acknowledging that, because I know it's sort of being talked about.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Okay, we are moving on to the MOA discussion between the town of Swampscott and the Mass Coalition of Police Local 417. And this is a discussion and possible vote to confirm our executive session, vote and ratify the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Swampscott and the Mass Coalition of Police Local 417 through June 30th, 2028. This agreement was previously discussed in executive session on January 26, 2026, under Mass General Law, Section 30A, subsection 21A3. So we discussed in executive session. It's now required that we discuss publicly in open session the memo of agreement between the town and the police union.
Are you going to do a summary?
If you'd
Do you
like.
wanna do it?
I didn't know how you wanted to move forward. What would you?
A summary is good,
Okay.
just for public consumption.
Sure,
Great.
so, and I think the highlights that I'll touch on are, from a wage standpoint, the increases over the 3 years are 3%, 2%, and 3%. In year two, there's also a post stipend that is added, which is 2%. There's a number of other housekeeping items and small changes, but I think the other large one that we want to highlight, and it gets to the point I was just making about sort of the value judgments that are made in the community. We've added an equivalent of a full quin to support an education incentive for our police officers. This will put us on par and I think largely make us more competitive in both retaining and recruiting new officers or transfer officers. A lot of the folks that we were seeing come in were getting some experience and moving to communities that offered this. And so our hope is that it will certainly improve retention, but also help with recruitment. So we're, looking forward to that bearing fruit. In addition, on the town side, there were some changes made to the calculation of vacation time, which I think ultimately will give a lot more flexibility and control to the chief and future chiefs in making sure that we can do everything we can to manage overtime and better manage the department overall. So those are some of the highlights from us. I'm happy to answer any questions there may be, but I think on the wage, the stipend and the education incentive, it's really about us doing what we can to make sure that we are recruiting and retaining the best possible officers.
Thanks, Mr. Town Administrator. We literally, the previous slide was just talking about drivers of collective bargaining agreement as we're talking about our fiscal year 27 process, budget process. And we're talking about contracts that are going to be in excess of our financial guidelines and our financial policies. So how do we manage our budget? And I'm not picking on the police contract at all. I understand that there are other considerations, but how do we enter collective bargaining agreements that are outside of our financial guidelines without blowing up our budgets? How do we do that?
As I was suggesting, I think one of the opportunities and goals is to manage overtime better. Certainly, when we're talking about public safety contracts specifically, historically we have been carrying numbers that do not reflect what we're spending. We're on an annual basis making transfers to cover, to get to sort of 5-year average spends rather than, budgeting appropriately from the beginning. I think ultimately the goal here is to give the flexibility and control to the chief in a way that he can better manage that, and hopefully that will allow us to manage something that is outside our fiscal guideline because it was a decision that was made that this type of investment in this contract made sense, both from the sort of what could be if we ended up in JMLC or somewhere else in sort of a mediation that is binding, or if we were going to come to an agreement that allowed us to collectively bargain, and though there were some hard discussions, come to something that worked for both sides as best as it could at the end.
Yeah, I think the commentary here is certainly driven predominantly by, when we talked about the teaching contract and we saw, many towns and cities go on strike with their teachers and not come to an agreement, and sort of where that left communities. The same too can be said about the police contract, and to end up at JMLC and not be able to truly control a lot of that process as we can here in town when all the stakeholders are at the table. There's a value to coming to an understanding and agreement with Swampscott truly at the value, like the heart of that value, versus JMLC, which is just, the average of what everybody else is getting brought down onto Swampscott. So I know, KP talked about that a lot, and I think it's something that we really had to take into consideration at sort of a risk-reward conversation. I also think that we've heard the police union, we've seen the chief here talk about hiring more than any other topic I have think in my entire tenure on the board. And that is because we cannot retain talent. And a lot of that relates to not just wage, but also training. And people will start here and then they'll hop somewhere else. And that just creates this cycle of always trying to find talent. And that causes overtime, it causes consternation with the union, it causes us to be like, why are we continue to have this question, why can't we retain talent? Hopefully this is an investment in that retention. And, we can't fully control that. People want to go, then if we're not the right fit or they're not the right fit for us, then that's fine. But I hope that this moves us in the right direction to be less short-sighted about that on the go forward.
No, understood. And just from my perspective, I'm supportive of this. I just think it's important that we're conveying that message to the public and John Q. and Jane Q. taxpayer.
Yep, absolutely. So hopefully the current spend, I'm not going to jump and say it'll be a savings, but it will definitely be an investment in, the future operations and the idea of investing in our police force to stay our police force for a long period of time and not having to go through these cycles of hiring.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'd just like to thank you, Nick, and the support we have from KP and the police union. I wasn't around for the prior negotiation, but given all the kind of it seemed to be anxiety about these negotiations and how they would go and what would happen and all that stuff. I feel like we got to a relatively reasonable position in a relatively speedy manner. So I appreciate that from all sides. And with that, I'd make a motion to authorize the chair of the town administrator to execute the agreement with the Mass Coalition of Police Local 417.
Second.
So I think you also need
I
to
just
confirm
make
the previous
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, and
So maybe we'll take them, if you wouldn't mind making that one first. And then I'll take
I wouldn't mind.
Okay, thank you.
I should have, yes. So I'd move to vote to confirm previous executive session vote and ratify the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Swampscott and Massachusetts Coalition of Police Local 417 through June 30th, 2028.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'd also move to vote to authorize the chair of the town administrator to execute the agreement and related documents.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to the last agenda item under new and old business, the discussion and possible vote on the Hawthorne reuse RFP recommendation. I just want to acknowledge and appreciate David for sitting on the evaluation committee. Appreciate you spending that extra time in this process, David. Thank you for that.
David, to read it.
And if I could just share the process, and then we can turn it over to you all to have the discussion that you'd like. We received the 2 responses that we had the teams come in, spend approximately an hour with the evaluation group. The evaluation group was myself, Rich Baldacci, Marzi Alaska, Max Casper, and David. And so we had a 20 or 30-minute presentation from each, roughly, with conversation interspersed at different times, but certainly Q&A following that. And then met to discuss the rankings on Tuesday, right? No, on Monday afternoon. And the 1-hour presentations were done a week ago tonight. So we had a little bit of time over the weekend to each think about it. We had a discussion about it. And as you can see from the scores that are presented up here on the screen, they were relatively close, very close. And in both cases, certainly opportunities for things to make them home runs, because it's 93 and 91 out of 175. So there were opportunities that we saw for improvement in each, but it was a lively discussion, and I'm happy to answer questions related to our work at all, but obviously David can also answer those, as we were all involved in the same discussions.
So my first question is, I see the scores, looks like the first one is Max, but there are not names on any of the others. Is there a way to figure out whose is whose, or?
I can go back. I can figure that out. If I look at them, I can probably tell you 3 of them.
While we're doing that, do we need to give
that's right. I'll use that. Gotcha. Never mind. I get it.
some summary of what
Yeah.
these are, these proposals?
I mean, I'm happy to.
The public has no idea at this point, really.
Right, it's a procurement that ultimately you all are making the
Oh, of
determination
course,
on what's most
of course.
advantageous.
Right.
I will give a thumbnail, and
Yeah.
David, if you want to jump in for each of them.
Sure.
Limited time only is an activation that is, I think, most akin to sort of the setup of a beer hall, as described to us anyway. It would be food and beverage. The food would be, at least in the beginning term, served out of likely food trucks or some sort of mobile concession that would be outside in the parking lot, was the idea as described to us. There would be improvements made inside, limited in scope to make sure that they could sort of get up and running as soon as possible and limit the resources that would be spent on an initial startup. And then it's an opportunity to see, what would work and what wouldn't. They talked about entertainment, they talked about community events, using it throughout the day for different groups, so that it's not only used as a place to come and have a beer and a bite to eat, but it could be someplace that a senior group meets at, or a community group that wants to meet at during the day. One of the highlights of their proposal, for me anyway, was when they discussed the idea of having a night where it's Swampscott Youth Basketball, and so they're actually partnering with community nonprofits to drive sort of customers and business, but at the same time then returning that by giving them a portion of any proceeds and that type of thing. So it's sort of the softer touch to get started and see what works and refine the plan as they go. But it's food and beverage service with other opportunities to expand that as they see what works and what doesn't, with the idea that they want to be activating as soon as the snow is cleared, basically, so that you have a spring and summer runway to really build up interest and build a habit of coming down to the location.
Yeah, I mean, their goal was really to open, within the month of May or June. As Nick had stated, it was going to be certainly a lighter touch, less capital investment on the inside of the building, more use of the outside. There were going to be, outdoor events, which would be complementary to the outdoor events that are held at Town Hall or with the town. And one of the highlights for me was really just the fact that they were going to try a number of things. So similar to what the recreation department's doing at Clark, where they're trying a considerable amount of programming. Some of it may work, some of it may not. These guys really had that same idea, in pulling together reversible, low-risk improvements on the inside of the building to get it up and running quickly. They don't want to have, a regulatory maze of trying to, pull together a brand-new kitchen or make extensive renovations to a building. They understand that this is going to be a short-term, 30-month lease, and they want to get going and they want to get going quickly, and they're willing to try a number of things and really invest in the community and support a number of local causes. So I thought it was a really interesting proposal.
And can you just touch upon the finances so that the folks who don't have all the information we have
Sure.
could understand?
Sure. So they were talking about making an investment that was going to be somewhere between what, $100,000 and $200,000.
I think 200 was the number they were.
Yeah, and they were going to pay the town rent of approximately $30,000
Over the course of the term.
Yeah, over the course of the term, and there was also going to be some type of percentage that was going to go to local causes, local organizations. That was not specified. We did not receive a draft profit and loss or any type of financials from these folks. They did say that they were going to put their own money in, and they were going to raise money from local residents. But to that effect, we didn't have any additional financial information on which to base our decision.
And obviously, when we sent the RFP, we, like, the lease is triple net.
Triple net, they're paying utilities.
Responsible for utilities, but we would obviously still carry insurance.
Yes, just as we did with Anthony.
Just as we did, but it would be, I assume the insurance is less if the building is occupied in any use versus vacant. Is that
Yeah, I think
okay
the
assumption?
one question that has remained is, a community having an operating restaurant is not part of the normal risk profile of any municipal
Sure,
insurance.
policy.
Yeah, so.
Is there like a rider or something we need?
Right, so that would be the question is.
What we had.
We had that before.
Okay.
But finalizing if that cost would change at all, if it's going to be continued, as opposed to, I think, they were well aware at the time that it was a year-to-year lease. And this would be the same thing where we're saying it's
Sure.
a short-term, 30-month use, where would we be on that? But yes, we would have our insurance, they would have theirs, we'd be additionally insured. And it's triple net plus utilities, and we go to great pains in there about the lack of capital investment that we will be making. So that was discussed while we were all at the table, just to sort of remind both parties that it's really as is,
Yep.
Right.
And if there were a significant failure in the building during the lease, I assume we draft in such a way to say if they did not want to make the investment, they could be out. If we didn't want to make the investment, we could be out,
I
right?
believe so. I want to confirm how that's written. but
Okay,
There's ways out for both, yes.
okay, yeah.
And I just want to state, just from the conversation that we had with the, with the limited time only group, the name limited time only, they understand
Yeah.
that they're only going to be short-term tenants of the property, short-term stewards of the property. It's in their name, and it's fully understood.
Yeah.
I would just highlight, to underscore that, I called that out for the other proposal, and this was second, so I called it out for them as well. I think in both cases, they're like, oh, in a perfect world, everything goes great. And we're like, no, it's 30 months. It's over, we have no authorization, that's it. And I actually started the Q&A with that, with both groups, just to really be
Hit
a
it
wet
home.
blanket, to say, like, can everyone acknowledge that it says that, regardless of what you drafted, and everyone acknowledged it, but it's an important point.
But we just hadn't
It's
gotten
an important-
to the second.
I know, it's an important
Yeah.
point to underscore that Mike's response was, got it, I see what's in there, yes, and limited time only is our name,
Okay. All right, do you want to go into the second proposal? Give a little,
You're doing the second one?
Sure. So the second proposal is the Swampscott Center for the Arts. It's a performing arts, I'm sorry. I wrote it wrong on my slide. That was why I misquoted there. They are looking to do a number of things with this property, and it's, I think one of the scoring sheets said multi-venue. I think that's one of the best ways to describe what they came to us with. It's the activation of what was the dining room as a space for live music and other entertainment. Again, There is investment on the inside. It's much greater in this case. They're talking about the kitchen. They're talking about using the, what was the fish market as a Maria's Gourmet and Grab the Bagel. There's an area that they were discussing using as a way to tell the history of Swampscott and the entrance. There were a lot of different, whereas Mike,
The Gateway Nautical Museum and Gift Shop.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
sorry I'm not reading word for word.
Language
but,
is.
So it's the idea that there's going to be,
In the clay pond.
it's the idea that there would be multiple different sources of revenue, obviously, for them and activation, so that it is not only used in the evening, it's not only used in the morning, that there's throughout the day different uses that are activating the space and drawing traffic to the area or to the building. The term in their case is a payment of $300,000 over the course of the term of the lease, which, if we're doing it month by month, it would be, if it's in a 30-month lease, 10 a month. So, but there's also significant investment on the inside, both in the fish market side, in the kitchen, and in the dining room. Am I missing anything so far?
How much of an investment are they to upgrade?
What was the number that they?
They warranted that they were willing to spend $1 million, Danielle?
Wow.
And to underline,
30
and
months?
Already, supposedly.
Well,
we'll get to that.
Skimmed that part, I think.
David has feedback for that part.
David, please give the feedback.
so, as I had mentioned previously about the first proposal where we didn't have a profit and loss or anything, we didn't have any information with this proposal as well. The profit and loss was, it was sign here, and we'll give you some information. The fact that the respondents have secured a $1 million financing commitment from a local financial institution in support of the redevelopment and activation of the Swampscott Center for the Performing Arts would lead me to conclude as a banker that there has to be a profit and loss statement that would be evaluated. I don't believe right now, since there's not an approval from the select board or their or plans, I don't see how there could possibly be a commitment. There's probably a term sheet that a very soft term sheet that may have been issued here. But just furthermore, we're talking about, when we look at this evaluation criteria, we're talking about 7 different aspects where we're looking at the vision for the proposed property, we're talking about relevant experience, willingness to work within the town, but the most important thing for me is the ability to execute on the proposed vision. And looking at numbers, restaurants are typically pretty low margin type of businesses. So if you're talking about $1 million build out and you're talking about a $300,000 payment to the town, restaurants typically run on just 10% margin, let's say. So just for these guys to break even, they're having to do $13 million of sales in a 30-month period. To me, I don't see that as being feasible, and that severely hinders the ability to execute on the proposed vision, which is outlined in the proposal. At least that's how I'm reading it.
And what was the conversation in your meetings with them on that?
Well, in the proposal, the first sentence says, "To the town of Swampscott, on behalf of Johnny Ray and his executive team, we are pleased to submit the proposal for the adaptive reuse and long-term operation of the Hawthorne property as the Swampscott Center for the Performing Arts." So even though in the meeting, they did indicate that they understand that it's a 30-month lease, literally in the first sentence, they're mentioning long-term operation. They didn't give us any financials to be able to substantiate their investment whatsoever, which is, just as a banker, is concerning. And on page 1, 2, 3, 4, we talk about a collaborative long-term civic asset. I mean, I don't know if they're talking about them being there long-term or this property being there long-term, but there's multiple mentions of this being long-term, which just gives me pause as somebody who sat on that, on that committee.
To the question of the discussion, that I did want to say, just so it didn't get buried, I started the discussion by saying,
30
it says
months.
long-term in a few
30
different
months.
places.
Yes.
For us, this is a decision on the next 30 months. That's
Right,
it.
but we don't
Well,
we
for a
don't have,
restaurant,
we don't have
that
to
is
worry,
long-term.
we don't have to worry about, I mean, we don't have to worry about
more
the
than 2
long
years.
term. It's 30 months.
Correct.
Right.
So,
And that, I just want to make sure everyone in the room is on the same page. That's all I'm
right,
saying.
it's
Yeah, no,
30
I-
months, it's 30 months.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is true, Marilyn, but I think when we talk about feasibility on execution of what the proposal is, it looks like,
I mean, putting in 1.3 million for 30 months,
I mean,
I mean, I'm not financial whiz, but why would anybody do that if it's?
And they are organizing as a nonprofit as well, which it actually adds,
That
in
baffles
our
me.
view, I think, as a group, to the complexity of what was, but, they're working with,
That really baffles me.
right. And so I just want to highlight that in both cases,
There's a lot of questions.
there was a dearth
Sure.
of financial information. There were things that we
Yeah.
would have liked to
Yeah.
have had, for sure, from both of them. And we didn't. And so this was based on what was written and what was said in the room.
So the way I see it is that we would ideally tonight be kind of authorizing someone to kind of continue discussions with one group
Correct.
or the other, right?
So-
Subject to, understanding a lot more. So to me, I kind of put a lot of those, those questions as the next step of really understanding the proposal. To David's point, you'd have to dig in a lot more, particularly with this one, the Center for the Performing Arts. And it's clear, I mean, we're only gonna be doing this for 30 months, so that risk is on them, right?
Right.
We're gonna have a contract, they would owe us $300,000, that would be their risk, right? The one thing that we didn't say is that this is being proposed by someone who clearly knows how to run these things. I mean, in Marblehead, right? Runs Warwick, Beacon, these are not people that are just kind of thinking, oh, hey, I've never done this before, like,
Let's give it a whirl.
let me give it a whirl, right? So, I think that's, important to me.
So the piece that I'm just stuck on, and that is definitely important, but this isn't, something in Marblehead that's gonna be there for perpetuity. That's not the intent. That's not the message we were kind of given, I don't feel, from the special town meeting. I think it was pretty clear, 30 months at most, right? I mean, I think that was, we wanted it to be longer, we had to come down to 30 months, people weren't comfortable. Temporary, right? Just on face value, looking at Swampscott Center for the Arts doesn't scream temporary to me. And the amounts we're throwing out, I just can't wrap my head around why somebody would want to sink in 1.3 million for 30 months and not have an intention beyond 30 months that, I mean, anyone can tell you, okay, 30 months, sure, but are they really looking to be here for a longer time or have this, change? I'm just really cognizant of what it took to get us to even this point,
yeah.
with the short leash that I felt like the town, kind of has us on, right? And rightfully so. That's what people want. And, I don't want to take that for granted and just say, okay, but this person's going to give us the most money, but, have a different intent than what people really want us to do with this.
So I just want to be clear, what we're asking of you all is to choose the most advantageous proposals to the town. I appreciate the value judgments you're talking about, but as an RFP process, it's the most advantageous proposal, which does give you some wiggle room.
Sure.
But I just
mean,
want to highlight, once you choose the one that you would like us, within the RFP and within the draft contract, it's 30 days to sign, or we can walk, or they can walk. So again, the cadence is still there of us trying to do something quickly regardless of who you choose. So I just wanted to highlight that that's in what they accepted in responding to the RFP.
I understand time is of the essence, however, two things. One, like, this is a public process and not, like, we are just now discussing publicly what the elements of these both are.
Right.
And so I really think in order to get true public feedback, if we are going to get any, we should not vote on this tonight.
Correct.
We should
I agree.
put it on the next agenda and sort of live in it a little bit, let the public understand what's available to us under these proposals. And I mean, I also don't see why we can't ask these questions that we have tonight
Right.
now to both of the I mean, I guess they don't have to answer in the process, right? They could say, well, until we become the favored choice, we don't have to answer that.
So what questions are we talking
For the
about?
financial pieces, like if, you know, P&Ls or, I mean, if they're making representations that there are funds being
I think we just need to make sure we're asking the same thing, both
from
groups.
from
and
both, sure.
Measuring them.
Just more
And I
more
can
fully
make sure,
developing.
the one concern I have is it's not part of the RFP response. I don't know that we can just be taking other data after the fact.
Okay.
We requested this, they both were deficient. If you look at the scoring,
Right.
they had low numbers in those.
Sure, okay,
right.
all right, well,
I just have
because to me, it's, sorry, Marilyn, I just want
Oh, go
to
ahead, go ahead.
sort of cross this T really quick. The lack of the financing plan and the financial capacity really speak to a lot of other of the evaluation criteria, which is like, if you're, like, how do I feel about execution if I don't even see
Yeah.
the finances behind the execution? And like, I love living on a want and a prayer, but that's not gonna work for the best interest of the town of Swampscott.
I understand that. I want to be sure, and what we can do is take this feedback and make certain with
Okay.
procurement experts that we can request it. And if
Great.
the answer is we can't, then
Then we can't.
I would highlight that there's actually three options, and David and I discussed this at one point. It's one of them, 1, 2, or nothing.
Or nothing, right,
Right.
right.
We're not required to do anything, so there's still the opportunity to say, ton of uncertainty, not the right move.
Right.
Yep,
That, from my standpoint, I just want to say, budgeting, I would not love to be carrying this building for an extended period without someone going in. So
yep.
just want to put that plug in.
And your comments though, Katie, to me, they apply to both, even though the amounts are very different.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
you know, on the one hand, you know, David's point was kind of worked in both directions, right? Like, in terms of, these people have run businesses like this. Maybe based on that, that's how they're getting some more degree of assurance from a bank that they actually can get this financing. Because it's not a one-off that they're just starting to do this, right? There's a track record that they could be using with a bank to justify this further investment, right? So it's a bigger amount, but they have more wherewithal potentially to actually justify that. On the other hand, the other folks are talking about, well, I'm gonna pull $100,000 either out of my pocket, or I'm gonna crowdsource it, or I'm gonna get some donations. You know, so if you're actually, you know, there's higher risk, higher reward theoretically in a financial perspective with one. And I hear your point, Danielle, you know, and they clearly want it to be long-term. Let's just, you know, there's no doubt about that, right? But I don't care.
Right.
You know, in a way, like, it's 30 months, like, you can wish whatever you want, but this is a short-term gig.
Yep.
You know, maybe you show something that's very useful to us and it's a learning exercise either way, but it's 30 months. Yeah.
Right.
Yep,
So, so I think, yeah, it'd be good to, you know, understand from both perspectives, more detail about really where their financing is coming from. And then I guess the other question I have, I don't know if you guys had any discussion about this, with this Swampscott Center for the Performing Arts, and since it is gonna be, would be more of an investment, when are they thinking that they actually would be
open,
live with anything?
right.
I think in both cases, part of it is a hope and a dream, because when they were in there, they were seeing the space and the view, and, you know, one was I can't remember who, but was talking about like the view and the sunset and how we can get people down there for that. That's fantastic. It is true. It's a beautiful space.
Sure.
When you're looking out at the ocean. When you
Right.
turn back into the building, it's expensive and it's gonna take a long time to get,
Right.
depending on how much investment, to get that work done.
Yeah.
Right,
So, you know, I think limited time only was talking very specifically about wanting to make sure that they're activated as soon as possible, as soon as it's nice enough to be out and about, so that, again, people sort of build a habit and they can work with local nonprofits to get groups coming and going. At the same time, Swampscott Center for the Performing Arts was saying they wanted to get up and running as soon as possible too, and we'll get in there and take a look at it. They had, someone that has done sort of HVAC and systems work, talking about what it might take. So I think both of them don't have the full answer on when they can. They would both like to be up and running this spring.
Okay, so then I would say the second question is really feasibility and what literally is their plan to get to.
Right,
And
operational.
What is happening.
Okay.
Even if, one of them
What's their
says,
timeline?
I realize I'm not gonna be able to operate fully, even if it's, limited time only, I'm not gonna be able to operate indoors. I know I will have this active programming happening
Right.
June 1st. Will Swampscott Center for the Performing Arts do that too, or, how will they?
I honestly don't know how we'll be able to ask that within the structure of procurement, but I will ask.
You can have follow-on questions.
Well, I
that
think
are
they're
the
also
same for
listening
both.
tonight, and they might want to just let you know that anyway.
But you can't have follow-on questions that are the same for both bidders?
We're at the point that we've made a recommendation and we're asking you to take action and choose the most advantageous. I understand you're asking for more information. I just want to make sure we stay within the bounds of what we can
But
do.
if we're not taking a vote, if we're
Right,
not
so
voting
what
on this tonight.
recommendation are you
we can-
presenting?
So I think
Well, I mean, they're,
just, hold on, if I could, the rankings are public, they're out, people can see them, number one.
Right.
Number two, if we get too far down asking questions that they were either not in the RFP, it materially changes who may have responded, number one, and that's a problem. Because someone else could have seen it and said, oh, if I could have gone in and done X, Y, and Z differently, or answered this there's a point at which I'm concerned that we're crossing a line. I just want to make sure we don't do that. I don't think it's a bad idea to ask questions. I don't think it's a bad idea to get more info. I just want to make sure we're doing it the right way.
great. Me too.
I just have one question, because the way I'm looking at it, it says respondent has secured $1 million in financing commitment from a local financial institute. It doesn't say that they're investing $1 million into the building. It says that they have $1 million commitment, which would cover their cost of goods, their operational. It doesn't really lead me to believe that they're looking at putting in a $1 million investment that wouldn't have a return within 30 months. So, when I listen to the budget and listen to the constraints on us, and then I look at Appendix C here, 300,000 versus 30 is pretty significant. And I understand that we don't have financials really from either of them, which I can understand because these are I would think that somebody would be concerned about putting out financials from their personal or their business, not knowing if they have this secured, it would make them, make them vulnerable.
How would it make them vulnerable? This is a public process. And this doesn't have anything to do with their other business. This has to do with this business.
I think that because you have people who don't even have a limited, they don't have an LLC set up. So if both of these people decided to quickly put up an LLC, the LLC is going to show zero as far as their financial background. I think what you're looking for here is really, do they have a financial commitment? Do they have a bank that's willing to give them a line of credit?
Well, we're just looking for a pro forma, Mary Ellen. We're looking, and any bank is going to require some type of.
Well, we don't have that from, we don't have that from either, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think they both, or at least one of them says they definitely are ready to do that. They just want an NDA or something, right?
And that's not possible. We would not
Even
enter into,
post, right, even.
it's a public record.
It's a public record.
We get it, it's a
regardless.
public record.
Yes, there's no NDA. involved.
And Marzi made that clear in advance of the interview process. Let them both know, but it was specifically the one that called out the NDA. I asked her to just let them know that's not a subject of negotiation, that's just a no. Because it is a public record when we get it, it's a public process. And I think to both the points that David and Mary Ellen are making, these are I think, groups and organizations that maybe are not as familiar, and this was true of others that pulled the RFP and did not respond, that may not be familiar with public procurement, and there is certainly, I would say exposure of information is something that people may not be used to when they're going into a new business proposal like this. It's completely understandable from both sides of that argument.
Well, regardless of what questions we can ask, when we'll look into that, I do still think it's important that this is a true public process, and regardless of whether people come next time or not to publicly have opinions, we need to offer it as an option. So, my suggestion would be that we put this on the agenda for the next meeting, and we can, reevaluate. If we have some additional information, great. Even if we don't, the public will have heard at least the sort of broad strokes of each of the proposals and would have time. I think both of the proposal answers are going to be available on the website probably at this point.
Yep.
And so the public could access them there, and then if they had further questions, they could reach out in the meantime.
And just to clarify something you said earlier, Nick, you weren't necessarily saying just because the evaluation committee came up with a higher score for one, we're not required to.
You are not.
Yeah.
It's important that we're talking about it as the most advantageous to the community, though, when you make that determination. That's the decision you're
language,
making.
that's
The
the
language
decision.
matters,
Advantageous to the community.
most advantageous.
Most advantageous.
Which is all encompassing and not just one
Correct,
area. Right.
exactly.
I also think that we could probably do these rankings 3 times and we make it 3 different.
I mean, it
three
shows how
different
close
scores.
it was that
Yeah.
with
Right,
5
I
people,
think-
it was 2 points apart,
Right.
so.
Right.
I think
Wasn't a
what's
slam
clear
dunk either.
here is either could be advantageous.
Right.
We need a better understanding on the advantageousness of each proposal, maybe in order to differentiate one over the other. If we can get it, we will try. If
And
we can't,
assuming
still we'll make a
any
decision.
question can be asked, the 2 that I have noted are sort of time to execution.
Yeah.
And then a pro forma or some deeper level of financial information that gives a level of comfort to the folks making the decision that you can execute on that
Correct. I
plan
think-
that you brought before us.
Yeah, I mean, for me, just the financials are just a catalyst for execution, right? Like, I think, I don't need to do a deep dive into their P&L. I just want to make sure that what they're saying, they could execute on in a reasonable amount of time from the point they say they're going to start executing.
I just want to make sure I was asking the right things, and we'll work with the procurement folks at KP and the IG's office to make sure we ask the right questions.
Yeah. Okay, great. Any-
I think it's a really good thing that we do have 2 applicants.
Yeah.
Me too.
And, these are two applicants that show that they're gonna add quite a bit to the community.
Yeah,
So, good for us.
good for us, and thank you to the applicants, because
Yeah.
they're taking a risk too to come in. I mean, we had to convince town meeting that this was even a process worth
Right.
going down, and to have 2 choices. I won't say it's shocking, because that makes us feel like we didn't know it was gonna happen, but it is shocking, right? Because I don't know that, we hoped and we thought it could, but it's nice to see
Maybe we could have a limited time only Swampscott Center for the Arts.
join forces.
That's not a bad idea.
All right, moving
Thank you,
on.
Nick.
Beer garden outside.
David.
That's the.
Yeah, David, thank you again for the time you've
course.
put into this, and Nick and town staff. Now we will move on to the consent agenda. We have, on the consent agenda, we have early voting hours, which the clerk would like to hold early in-person voting at Town Hall on Tuesday, April 21st, Thursday, April 23rd, Friday, April 24th, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Wednesday, April 22nd, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. I think this has been relatively aligned with what we've done in
It is.
recent years.
Yep.
We're also looking to have 2 appointments, the Conservation Commission is looking to take a current member of Concom and step them from a full-time member to an alternate, and would like to have Jerry Falco appointed as a full-time member in that place. I have discussed with the chair as the liaison, and am putting that forward as a recommendation. As you all know, Concom is a very specific committee in town and has very specific requirements and attributes to be fulfilled. They've gone through the process and have made the recommendation, and therefore I stand in full support of that recommendation. And then discussion and possible vote to approve Anchor Food Pantry and the minutes for December 10th, December 17th, January 7th, and January 21st.
Can you, I'd like you to remove the 21st.
Okay,
Put it on for next,
remove them because we have discussion, or remove them just till next meeting?
just till next meeting.
Okay. So the consent agenda as amended would be all but the minutes for,
And Madam Chair, just regarding Anchor Food Pantry, has the use and occupancy agreement come in front of?
it has not come before us
Do we
yet.
have a plan for that?
At the,
Anchor Food Pantry, use and occupancy
okay,
of the building.
I'll run it down. Sorry, I don't have the answer for you right now. I don't know where it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It should just be a one-year extension. I think we've extended it 3 or 4 times at this point. It should just be changing the date from 25 to 26.
Yep.
So,
We will make sure it's the topic of
They did ask.
on the consent agenda next
thank you.
meeting.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as amended by Mary Ellen, removing the 1/21/26 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, select board time. Does anybody have?
Water sewer infrastructure will be presenting at our next meeting on the 25th. So they will be coming.
Topic is goals, right?
Yep, goals. So feel free to reach out to Kelly and coordinate. She'll be there along with, she may have another member or two of her committee to join her.
Very good.
And will we be having names of additional people to put on that committee at the next meeting?
We, like, you want to have them suggest alternates? Is that what you're speaking of?
Yes. I mean, we have people who have applied, we have alternates, we've been sitting with a committee that has opportunity to have more people on there, and we don't, and I'd like to get more people as alternates on that committee.
Heard.
I'd like to hear what the goals are from the chair first. And take that into consideration in thinking about subsequent members,
Alternate.
alternate members,
I think
whatever.
they're full staffed now. There are 2 alternates right now available to be seated. I think in myself and speaking to the chair, there was questions about goals and how the board viewed that committee going forward, how the committee viewed itself going forward. And my invitation was that they come before us and have that conversation before we put that other item on the agenda. So I will stick to that conversation that I had with the chair, unless there's another member who would like to see it on the agenda. And I would like to suggest that it be put on at either the next agenda or post that goal discussion so that we can give some space for the chair and the committee to get their arms around that. So, anything additional for select board time?
I would just like to thank Nate Bystrom, Joe Dulett, and Mr. Moretsky for broadcasting the meeting tonight. Thank you.
I do just want to acknowledge, again, I know we did this during the town administrator's time, but the ZBA and the work that was done with Benet to get the Veterans Housing Project to the point that it's at. There was a lot of good conversation, and I think got us to a point where I hope that everybody feels comfortable. And then hopefully we will have a go forward for understanding what that process looks like from this point, moving to fruition. So I want to just thank all the parties for that time and energy for that, and that moving into its next chapter. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, my bad.